Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So my name is Nea. I'm based in Helsinki, Finland, and pole is my main sport. And I'm just coming up on my third pole anniversary, so it's a great time to also chat more about pole dancing.
About how you got into pole and a little bit about like pole and maybe your strengths or what you do and how you really got into it.
Sure. So I've been in competitive sports my entire life until an injury benched me for good. And so then I started going to the gym. And I really enjoyed getting stronger in my lifts. But what I was really missing was this kind of skill based training that I was used to some family to try. Because even the most self assured gym bro, they'll walk in so cocky and confident, and then they can't hold on to the pole for more than like a few seconds, nor can they fight the centrifugal force of the spin. And so in my case, I think what I'm my strengths in pole.
And you went to Aalto, right? Aalto University.
Yes, I did. I studied business technology management, or that's what I like to call it. I think it's the most descriptive of what I studied, but the official title is information and service management. And during my studies, I focused primarily on AI and responsible AI. And now I also work in the AI field.
That's really nice. So, did you ever have like any breaks like when you were in university was because I know you've been sporty throughout like your whole entire time and you are like today, but has there ever been a point where you've just been like, okay, I'm just too burnt out, I'm not doing this, and then just like been 1 month doing nothing and then like slowly gotten back to it? Or and yeah, probably Instagram story or whatever later. But yay, you made it! So we can start the meeting and welcome to the Pole with Lulu podcast where we talk about pole health and fitness mainly. And I'll get into the first question. So just would you like to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and tell us a bit about you?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So my name is Nea. I'm based in Helsinki, Finland, and pole is my main sport. And I'm just coming up on my third pole anniversary, so it's a great time to also chat more about pole dancing.
Wow, pole anniversary. What is like is in 1 year of pole?
Yes.
You
So
don't
I like calling them anniversaries. So I always kind of like to take a minute to reflect on the past years. And so it's always like a special occasion for me. So third anniversary is coming up now in a few weeks.
okay, third anniversary. So you've done pole for like 3 years.
Yes.
Yes. So my next question is, do you want to tell us about how you got into pole and a little bit about like pole and maybe your strengths or what you do and how you really got into it?
Sure. So I've been in competitive sports my entire life until an injury benched me for good. And so then I started going to the gym. And I really enjoyed getting stronger in my lifts. But what I was really missing was this kind of skill based training that I was used to from my previous sports. And so, after I think a really boring gym session of just doing the same compound lifts with progressive overload, I think I went home and I Googled alternatives to gymnastics. And aerial acrobatics came up, and I had never heard of it before. And on a whim, I ended up purchasing this 5 time trial to a local aerial studio. And I went, and after that very first session, I marched up to the reception and I said, sign me up as a full member. And I've been doing pole ever since. And what I really, or the reason I was able to do that so confidently is I think pole was like a cocktail and it ticked off everything that I had been looking for. So it had strength, mobility, flexibility, agility, athleticism, and then the skill-based training that I was talking about. And I also think pole is a very misunderstood sport. It looks so easy and fluid when you see someone professional or somebody who's good good at it doing it. But boy, is it humbling when you try yourself. And that's why I really enjoy taking my friends and family to try, because even the most self assured gym bro, they'll walk in so cocky and confident and then they can't hold on to the pole for more than like a few seconds, nor can they fight the centrifugal force of the spin. And so in my case, I think what I'm my strengths in pole, it would definitely be more on the strength and dynamics flip type of movements. And I think that's where my background from doing, for example, cheerleading really helps. And also just the fact of like going to the gym and being able to lift your body weight really has played a big role in being able to progress so quickly on the pole front.
Yeah, so I also saw like on your Instagram that you have quite an athletic background. So when exactly did you start doing competitive sports? And is it just because I know that like there are some families who have like really hard like fitness is kind of like it is incorporated into like their life. Like my cousins, they're like I don't know doing some national sports, and then there are some families where it's like they don't really do any sports. So what age did you start first, like competitive sports?
My family is exactly what you're describing. So, my parents had only one major rule for me and my siblings, and that was that after school, you could not just stay home. You had to have a hobby, a sport. And I'm really grateful for it looking back, because, of course, it takes a lot from a parent to always drive three kids to different practices all around the city. But for me, I first did track and field. That was kind of how I got started with competitive sports. After that, I moved on to cheerleading and was competing also on a national level in cheer. And then after that, I did kickboxing for a while, but I wasn't competing, even though I was in the competitive group. And yeah, that's kind of like my like sports background.
Nice. So what age was the first? Like
Gosh,
five.
I think my parents signed me up for some sort of class already when I was like 4. There's like photos of me when I was younger
Oh.
in like this gymnastics class, like hanging from some rings. But then I, for example, lived in India, and in India, the school was so that you had to choose a sport for you to do during that year. And so when I was like 7, I had chosen like track and field, and then at school as well, I would have somebody coaching me, and there were competitions and so forth. So I think 7 was when I think it like officially started. So first grade, very early.
Okay. And right now you're working and you went to Aalto, right? Aalto University.
Yes, I did. I studied business technology management, or that's what I like to call it. I think it's the most descriptive of what I studied. But the official title is information and service management. And during my studies, I focused primarily on AI and responsible AI. And now I also work in the AI field.
That's really nice. So, did you ever have like any breaks like when you were in university was because I know you've been sporty throughout like your whole entire time and you are like today, but has there ever been a point where you've just been like, okay, I'm just too burnt out, I'm not doing this, and then just like been 1 month doing nothing and then like slowly gotten back to it? Or
I wouldn't say that's happened to me because I think from a young age, the like love towards sports or exercise was always ingrained in me. So I never saw it as something that's like an extra burden. So even during those times that I felt really stressed or I've had a lot of things going on, whether that was on the work front or school front, I always found that exercise was that like savior in my life. So I think I've always been quite consistent with it. Of course, there's times when I don't train as aggressively and intensely, but I think it's always there.
okay. And like what like when you had that injury, was it so you were just like taking it more easy? It wasn't something that like put you off or made you feel like I'm
Yeah, in my case, the injury wasn't so severe that it like tied me to my bed. Instead, it actually kind of forced me to look at training in a completely new way because I think coming from a competitive background, you're often just like looking at your times or performance or the next competition. But when I faced that injury, I had to kind of take a step back and be like, wait, I haven't really been taking care of my body as a whole. And that's when like the true training began, where you have to like go into the gym and do like rehabilitation moves. So things with just like rubber bands or kind of just like learning movement patterns again. And that I think is often way harder because it's more mundane and you don't always see the progression so quickly.
Mm.
So it actually kind of forced me to train more. I was doing those like physio practices like almost every day.
Yeah. It like forced you to train like properly and like properly in a sense. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you like how did you balance like studies like and now pole because you're still I see you like sometimes going to the pole studio like a pole work and studies and like I think it's also like compounded over time because you've like consistently just been doing sports, like trying to do like what you can like day by day. So that's why you're this good. But like how have you overall like balanced it out and managed to like get like because you have to have like good grades if you want to go to Aalto basically. So how have you managed to keep them both like so well managed?
Ooh, that's a tricky question. Well, I think one big thing that contributed to this is just my type of personality. I'm a type A person, if you will. Type A being that I'm very organized. I love my to do list. I worship my calendar. And so just having your life in order in some state just makes it way easier to execute. So I remember during my busiest time when I was doing my studies, working full time, and then also training, for me, it had to be very clear like, what am I doing? When am I doing it? And so that was like a big thing that helped me. And I think, secondly, if you hate what you're doing, if you hate what you're studying, if you hate your job, and if you hate your exercise or your sport, you're going to have a very rough time. But if you can find joy in all of those, then it's just easier to just execute on a day-to-day level. And then thirdly, I think exercise or pole nicely split up my day. So what I would often do is I would first have work, then I would go do a pole session, and it kind of breaks up my day. I get to see a lot of lovely people. I get to move my body. It releases endorphins. And then after that, I would do some schoolwork. And it was like a nice rhythm. And then I would go to sleep and kind of repeat the routine. But I would say it comes down to those three things and discipline, unfortunately. I don't think there is a shortcut.
Yeah. Would you say like it's also I guess the people around you that you have like I think maybe not so much now because are you 26 or how
I'm 25.
25 so it's like you're already an adult you can kind of have your own say but like I guess like at a young age like your parents or family has been like kind of supportive of like of it so I think that's been good but I also think that as an adult, it's of course like I guess easier, but it's also like if you say you have like people around who are also like, you know, in the same, sport or because I do sometimes like feel like pole is a bit of a like a lonelier sport in that sense. Well, not so much because you're doing it in a group, but it's not like in a team, where unless you like have a partner and you're doing like a pair routine or like a group or a team. Like I used to do it in a team, but right now like they all the other people kind of quit because they were like they're like focusing on like either school. Some of them just realized that maybe pole is not the sport for them, so they did something else. But yeah, would you say that's also a big player, like people around you or yeah.
I think community is king. So I think throughout my life, I've had a really good support system, whether that's come from my family. I think, especially on the education and schooling front, they never pressured me to get any certain types of grades. And I think that is a gift because then I got to do it truly for me and I built that like intrinsic motivation. But of course, they were there to support me. And similarly, around me, I was in a school where everyone was kind of a go getter. And so it really pushed me seeing everybody else succeed around me. And regarding your comment around pole being more of a lone wolf type of sport, I see what you mean. But at the same time, I've also noticed that pole has one of the like strongest senses of community. Like
Yeah,
I've
I
never
also
walked
realized that. Yeah.
into like if I went to the gym, I could never just start like talking to the person next to me and then like but I think in pole, like people will just start chatting with you and they'll come and spot you and support you and cheer you on. And that's been a really big also motivator for me, like progressing with pole because it's nice to come to practice. And then if I'm stuck with some movement, it's always that somebody's like, hey, you should try this, and they'll give me a little cue, and then it like unlocks something. And then we kind of share these nuggets of information forward and forward, and that's it's amazing. I love the pole community.
Yeah, I've also realized that. I think it's just the way it's performed because it's like a stick, like well, not a stick, but it's it's not like you unless you're doing like a pair routine or like a group routine, but usually it's not like you have like five people against five people and then there's like you guys have to, work together. But I do think that it has like one of the strongest communities because I think that it's like a growing sport and there aren't, that many people who, and it's also kind of misunderstood, and it's kind of like the people who only do it kind of understand it, so they're like, hey, I get you, we have something very much in common. And then also I think there's some really cool events in pole, like all these other sports you have, like I don't know, baseball, whatever, tennis, but I do realize that the aerial and pole community, they have some really like mind-blowing performances that when you go watch it's like, oh my. um but yeah, this is like nearing to the last few questions. So, have you ever had like have felt anxious about like have you ever you've performed in public events? Yeah, shows. So, have you ever, because I feel like as a teenager it's always like you're kind of growing into yourself and your body and like you especially on so like because of social media, it's I mean, personally, I sometimes have like anxiety performing, and personally, I don't like posting so many pictures of myself on the internet. But then I'm like, okay, you know what? I feel like people like it. It might help somebody, and also I need to make money somehow, and there are different ways of making money. But it's like simply sometimes it's like, okay, what are you good at, and what are people willing to pay for? And then you have to be like, okay, well, this might be something I'm good at. So have you ever felt like anxiety in like your appearance or anything while you're doing, sports? And if you did, then how did you get over it if you did?
That's a loaded question. Well, I think everyone at some point feels anxiety or insecurity with the way they look. And I think in a lot of sports, there is a certain type of physique that you should have. And of course, like realistically, most people will never reach that like dream physique. And so for sure. And I think with pole in particular, it's one of those sports that you have to be dressed, in a way that you can have like enough friction between yourself and the pole. And so there's also this what I was saying earlier that pole is very misunderstood and it often gets compared directly to, for example, like stripping or strip dancers. And even though the background does originally stem from sex workers,
Not
I
not really. I read that it stemmed from some Indian, like it stemmed from like ancient India or something. That's what I read. Yeah.
well, true, true. I've read several like histories on pole because there's like the Chinese pole has its own history, and then there's like the more exotic dancing type of pole that originated from Black culture. But I think there's like a lot of misconceptions about pole, and then because of the way we often dress, uh, I have sometimes thought like, oh, can I post this, especially on my own social media because I have friends, I have family, I have coworkers, and I think like, what will they think of me? And that's such a silly thing to think because if they had any clue on like what it takes to hang on to this pole, they wouldn't be focusing on my appearance or what I'm wearing, but they would be just like so immensely impressed by the actual like sport and the physicality of it. So for me, what's helped is most definitely just doing more of it. I kind of like embrace the cringe or like embrace the anxiety. It's a stupid thing to say. But at the end of the day, like we're all floating on a rock that's like floating in space. And within like, I don't know, 50 years, when this person who's now watching this podcast, they're not going to be thinking of me or my body or what I was wearing or what I posted on my story, whether it was cringe or whether it was cool. They won't remember me. So I think that's kind of been like the
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 vision.
advice I give myself. But then on top of that, my work, I do public speaking for a living, and in that way, I've gotten very comfortable in being in front of the audience. And what you learn early on when you do public speaking is not everyone is going to like you. Not everybody is going to think what you have to say is interesting. But then there will be one person, two people that might find some nugget of information being so powerful that it changes how they think, how they act, how they behave. You might inspire them. And that for me is very inspiring. And I think it's the same with pole, that if I post a video of me doing some trick, it will often inspire at least one person who's maybe thinking of considering starting pole, or it's somebody who does pole and sees that, oh, now I was able to achieve this trick, I could try too. So that's for me. Embracing the cringe, understanding that people are going to forget what you've posted, and then holding on to those few people you can inspire.
Yeah. And I think just maybe like, doing what's like true to you, like, because like I feel like you're at the like it depends of course on the person, but most people like once they get above the age of 25 or I feel like they kind of know themselves a bit better, but of course there are some people who are just lost because of life. But I feel like especially when you're a bit younger, it's kind of like, oh, you're just trying to fit in, you're still trying to like sort of find yourself and it takes a bit of time, but then eventually, like once you get there, you'll get there. Um, but like those have been oh yeah the last question, but then I'm gonna ask another question which is really not related to this, and it might kind of like I don't know if I'm probably not gonna include it when I post this. But yeah, so have you ever like since you've done a lot of sports, I don't because I still feel like you've stayed consistent with your physical activity, so it hasn't happened really to you like that. But I've seen some people reach the burnout phase, or then they've like just kind of overtrained. And as a high like training athlete, it usually goes so that like because you're burning so many calories, when you do the training, if you all of a sudden stop, I realize that I'm still able to consume like the same, like I still like the consumption of the calories doesn't stop, so I feel like it's a lot easier to gain weight in that sense. So have you ever had that like thing when you're like eating or you know say or not really?
Mm, I mean, I fully understand what you mean about like pole is intense and the hunger also grows from just the physicality of it. But I think I've kind of grown attuned to my own body and like my hunger cues. So I haven't really faced that. But yeah, no, I don't think I've really faced it. But then to answer your previous question about like whether I've gone through like phases where I haven't done sports as actively. Or what was your question? Actually, I completely zoned out.
Like with just diet and exercise and whether you've had maybe like some fluctuating eating according to like your performance level or like that. Yeah.
Oh, right. Now I remember you were saying something about plateauing and like burning out or like,
Yeah.
and that I have faced actually with pole. So not so much about this like fluctuations with weight or hunger cues or this kind of thing, but I have faced plateaus where I've been training a lot or maybe overtraining, and then I don't progress anymore. I hit like a full stop. And it's so frustrating because I can see that I'm doing the right things, but I'm not progressing. And so then it kind of returns me always to my training philosophy, which is, well, I think it's best told through a story, actually. So when I was in year five, I think, I had a PE teacher who gave us an assignment, and we had to keep a fitness diary for, I think, a month. And to pass, you needed to have at least 7 hours of exercise per week. And then on top of that, you needed to tick off the 5 different types of movement. And those 5 being strength, speed, endurance, mobility, and agility. And back then, I was a competitive athlete, so I had no problem getting the volume. I think I was getting maybe 15 hours instead of 7. But what I came across was that I was not getting all the different types of movement. And so during that 1 month, I was like, okay, I'm going to really focus on getting more variety of exercise in. And so, and I did, and I noticed during that 1 month period that I felt better. My main sport, I was performing at a higher level because I was working on other sports or other types of movement adjacent to my main sport. And then thirdly, it made me feel like so immensely grateful for what the body is capable of doing, and how I kind of almost left that untapped because I didn't realize that we need all these different types of movement. And so, kind of coming back to your question, is when I face plateaus, for example, with pole, I have other sports or other types of movement I can lean back on. So, yes, I do, I think, 4 pole sessions per week, 2 spin, 2 static. But then on top of that, I do my runs, I have sprints, I do long distance as well. And then I'll do my gym workouts as well, or other types of like group sports with friends like paddle or tennis and these kind of things. And so, kind of related to hunger and like keeping a stability, just because I do less pole, I still have other types of movement that kind of keep me active.
Yeah. And I think that's the key because like most people think that like it's just one sport that's gonna be do it, but it's I feel like the best is to have like one main sport, of course, because people have different bodies and I think different bodies are actually good at different sports if you really truly did try, a lot of things. And then but then the other sport kind of support also in that and they make you, when you're feeling at your lowest lows they feel make you feel like life's still good, life's still fun.
Exactly.
But
And those, and I think the background of like doing some sort of like strength training or conditioning, that is what ultimately enables me to get through the plateau that I'm facing.
hmm,
So I think that's like my number one tip for any like pole dancer or aerialist, that if you want to progress faster or do like harder moves, you have to spend time in the gym, just like working on strength and conditioning.
hmm. Or whatever that one trick that you're trying to do you feel like you're still lacking in. So if it's a
Exactly.
flexibility move then and you're not able to do it, like go to the gym, maybe focus a little bit more on flexibility. If it's a strength move that you're, trying to get and it's not working out, focus on strength.
True.
Yeah, but the one question that is not really related to this is I'm trying to currently like make a pole dancing grip that is both skin friendly and still able to work as a pole dancing grip. And of course, like since it's my idea and kind of like I'm the one who's like putting all the money in, trying to make it happen. But I am trying to look for partners, like not people who will be like, oh, take risk on my behalf of this, but who would be like, I guess, interested. I mean, it's not like you have to work like every single day, but it's like, hey, if you're going to like the pole dance studio here that's nearby. Once I've kind of gotten it, if you'd like to try it, or if you like, I might film some clips of myself if it's good, only if it's good. And if you're also going, then I could also come, and then we could just like film each other, and you could try it if you want. But that's later to come, and far in the future still.
No, that's amazing. I love a good business idea. And I think some of the most successful business ideas come from choosing a hobby or a sport and then finding like a problem. And there's a lot of problems with grip aids. I think so many of them, well, one, they're irritating, or two, you can't get them off the pole. Like you have to like scrub to get the pole clean. Or then thirdly, I
They
think
feel very,
because we live in Finland, like you and I, so at least my skin is rather dry in the winter. So a lot of these grip aids just like make my skin even drier. So if you're able to like hack that and like build an amazing product, I'm like happy to support and distribute, create content, promote, whatever. So
yay! Only if it's good though. If it sucks, you'll be like, nope, I am promoting that. But
I'm very much like I want to stand behind everything I say. So if it's a great product, I'm very proud to stand behind it. But then,
yeah, if
well,
it's a shit product, nope. But
but I
yeah,
think developing a product is probably a long process. You'll probably,
yeah.
I'm
I mean,
assuming you'll
I've
get
run
like
into hard
demos and
problems but like I'm still like the first few have been kind of fails, and I've told like the supplier because I'm working with the supplier that like no, like we have to remodel this, we have to redo this. But I feel like once I've got something, I'll start contacting people and be like, I got something. Do you want to try?
yes, please.
Yeah, but I think I'm running out of time a bit here, and this thing is gonna end soon. But I'm so happy to have had you on the podcast now, and I hope to see you later in the pole dance studio, and yeah, so forth, so on.
Likewise. Thanks so much for having me. I would have one thing I'd love to say for anybody who's watching who doesn't do poll. I don't know if we still have some time for it or no.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, say it.
Yes. Uh, so as I said, I love bringing friends and family to try pole, and they always struggle with it. And I've been trying to ask, like, what is it that makes it so difficult? And I think I've narrowed it down to four things. And I love sharing this because it opens up people's minds about what pole in reality is. So number one, grip strength. You need ironclad grip strength. And it's something that most people never train. And it's also one of those things that takes forever to develop. So I think when most people try, they're like, whoa, why can't I hold on? So I think that's number one, what makes pole tricky. Number two is the pain. So I think it also surprises people like when you press your skin into a metal pole, it is going to be a little bit uncomfortable. And so that's also like quite a surprising thing that most sports don't have, where you're like kind of all the time agitating your skin in some way. Then thirdly, I think it's just the extreme ranges of motion, pole dancers go into. Most sports, you're kind of just in this quite minimal range of motion. And if you go into extreme ranges, you don't need strength there. But in pole, you need to like go into those extreme end ranges of motion and then hold and squeeze and maybe even do like something, flexible at the same time, like active flexibility. And most people are like entirely shocked of like the mobility that's required and then the strength that's required. So that's like another thing that is insane in my view. And also building up that strength, stability, and mobility takes a lot of time. And then number four, if I had to call it something, I would call it maybe spatial awareness. And what I mean is like most pole dancers are spinning and upside down, and they're trying to micro adjust, squeeze all at once. And I think if you've ever told a person who's maybe doing a handstand, like, oh, okay, move your leg towards the center, they will move the wrong leg and then they'll move it the wrong direction. And so most people will never fathom like how much you have to do at once while spinning, while gripping on for dear life, while upside down. And so I really urge anybody who thinks that it's easy to just give it a try, because I think it's one of like the most or the best forms of exercise, because you get so much different types of agitation and stressors on your body. So I think it builds very resilient athletes. That's for sure.
Yes, and I totally agree with you on those 4 points. But we're running out of time because I haven't upgraded to pro.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna see you hopefully soon. Take care. Bye.
Thanks so much for having me. See you.